Portrayed as the sharp-witted, business-savvy patriarch of the Harrison family, Rick Harrison had long been the face of Pawn Stars, the anchor of the hit show that blended quirky humor, rare artifacts, and the daily grind of a family-run pawn shop. To millions of viewers around the world, Rick was the fast-talking expert with an encyclopedic knowledge of everything from ancient coins to vintage guitars. But according to his son, Corey Harrison, there's much more to his dad than meets the eye. The image portrayed on screen, the cool-headed, joke-cracking boss, was only one dimension of a much more complex man. During a candid interview, Corey opened up about the private side of Rick that the cameras never captured. He spoke of the man behind the negotiations, the one who carried the weight of the family on his shoulders, who struggled quietly behind the scenes, and who worked tirelessly, often to the point of exhaustion, to build an empire from the ground up. What the public saw was the polished version, the man who appeared in millions of living rooms each week, making deals and offering sage advice. But behind that polished veneer lay years of hardship, mistakes, sacrifices, and unrelenting pressure. One of the most surprising revelations Corey shared was about Rick's intense perfectionism, a trait that was both a driving force and a burden. In the early days of Pawn Stars, when the success of the show was far from certain, that perfectionism became a double-edged sword. Rick wasn't just the guy with the one-liners. He worked like a machine, Corey said, pausing with emotion, and expected everyone else to keep up. For those closest to him, especially family members trying to match his pace, it wasn't easy living up to that standard. The relentless drive for excellence meant that mistakes weren't just corrected, they were dissected, studied, and never to be repeated. It created a high-pressure environment, one that sometimes bred resentment but also built resilience. Corey also disclosed the emotional toll the show took on his father, something fans never really got to see. Rick, the ever-composed and witty host, often masked his stress and personal hardships with humor and sarcasm. Behind closed doors, he was reportedly far more vulnerable than people realized, haunted by past failures, financial risks, and the immense responsibility of being the family's anchor. He felt it was his duty not only to keep the business afloat but to shield everyone else from the storms he faced. He carried everything on his shoulders, Corey explained. Even when things were falling apart behind the scenes, he'd smile for the camera and make a joke. That was his way of coping. This side of Rick, emotionally burdened, constantly under pressure, yet unwilling to let it show, adds a profoundly human layer to the persona fans thought they knew. One particularly startling confession involved Rick's secret health battles in recent years, struggles that he deliberately kept hidden from the public eye. Corey revealed that his father, despite being in serious pain, would go to work as if nothing was wrong. "That's just who he is," Corey said. "He'd rather protect everyone else than show weakness." The image of strength and control that Rick maintained on screen was no accident. It was a deliberate choice, born from a deep-seated belief that vulnerability could unravel everything he had built. He wanted to be the rock, the immovable force that held the family and the business together, even if it meant ignoring his own needs and well-being. These health issues, which ranged from chronic back pain to more severe, undisclosed conditions, were compounded by the stress of managing a brand that had grown beyond anyone's expectations. Yet Rick showed up, day after day, unwavering in his commitment to the shop, the show, and his loved ones. Beyond the personal struggles, Corey also shed light on his father's lesser-known passions, facets of Rick's personality that rarely made it onto the screen. These included his fascination with philosophy, science, and obscure historical texts, interests that shaped the intellectual depth viewers occasionally glimpsed during negotiations over rare items. "He has this library in the house," Corey said, "full of ancient books and artifacts, stuff he's collected privately for decades." It's a side of Rick that even die-hard fans may not know about, the scholar, the quiet thinker who finds solace and excitement in studying forgotten knowledge. "Most people don't know," Corey added, "but he's probably one of the smartest guys I've ever met." That intellectual curiosity, nurtured in private moments away from the spotlight, served as the foundation for Rick's encyclopedic knowledge on the show. It wasn't an act, it was who he was all along. The rare items that came through the shop weren't just dollar signs to Rick, they were portals to the past, and he approached each one with the reverence of a true historian. But the most emotional part of Corey's revelations centered on Rick's deep, unspoken love for his family. Despite the tough exterior, the relentless work ethic, and the often gruff demeanor, Rick always prioritized the shop because he believed it was the one thing that could provide stability for generations to come. It was never just about money, it was about legacy. He sacrificed a lot, Corey shared. His time, his health, his personal life, all to build something bigger than himself. To Rick, the pawn shop wasn't just a business. It was a monument to resilience, a gift to his children and their children. It was his way of ensuring that, no matter what happened, the Harrison family would have something solid to stand on. That mission drove every decision he made, from the smallest purchase to the biggest business expansion. And though he rarely said the words, his actions screamed love and devotion. He didn't have to say "I love you" out loud. He lived it, every single day, by showing up, by pushing forward, by never giving up. These revelations have caused a stir among fans, many of whom now see Rick Harrison in a new light, not just as the tough negotiator and TV personality, but as a deeply complex man who carried immense burdens with quiet strength. The man who once seemed invincible, always ready with a quip or a confident answer, is now being recognized as someone who gave everything he had for his family, even when it hurt. Social media platforms have lit up with messages of support, surprise, and gratitude from viewers who now feel a deeper connection to the man they watched for years. Longtime fans are revisiting old episodes with fresh eyes, noticing moments they once overlooked, those subtle winces of pain, those lingering glances at family members, those rare instances of emotional vulnerability. As Corey's story spreads, it's becoming clear that the legacy of Rick Harrison goes far beyond reality TV. It's not just the story of a businessman who turned a struggling pawn shop into a global brand. It's the story of a father, a fighter, and a flawed but fiercely devoted man whose greatest treasure was never in the pawn shop but in the family he fought so hard to protect. His life was one of contradictions, public strength and private pain, commercial success and personal sacrifice. But through it all, Rick remained true to his mission, to build a future for those he loved, no matter the cost. Rick Harrison may have made his name evaluating historical relics, but the most valuable legacy he leaves behind is his own story, a story of grit, sacrifice, and unyielding dedication. In Corey's words and in the hearts of those who knew him best, Rick isn't just a reality star. He's a symbol of perseverance, of fatherhood in its most selfless form, and of the quiet heroism that often goes unseen until someone has the courage to speak the truth. And now, thanks to Corey, that truth is finally being told. Rick Harrison may have made his name evaluating historical relics, but the most valuable legacy he leaves behind is his own story, a story of grit, sacrifice, and unyielding dedication. In Corey's words and in the hearts of those who knew him best, Rick isn't just a reality star. He's a symbol of perseverance, of fatherhood in its most selfless form, and of the quiet heroism that often goes unseen until someone has the courage to speak the truth. And now, thanks to Corey, that truth is finally being told. What makes Rick's story so compelling isn't just the fame or the fortune. It's the struggle, the fight behind the curtain, and the profound humanity of a man who never stopped trying to do right by his family. Behind every deal made on screen, every joke cracked in front of the cameras, and every late-night inventory session in the shop was a man who bore the silent weight of legacy. For Corey, growing up under that kind of influence wasn't always easy. He was hard on me, Corey admitted in the interview. But now I see it was because he wanted me to be better, stronger. He didn't want me to rely on the show or the fame. He wanted me to learn how to survive without it. Those lessons, though tough at the time, have stayed with Corey throughout his adult life. The work ethic, the attention to detail, the value of grit, these weren't just business skills passed down from father to son. They were life skills, forged through shared hardship and a relentless pursuit of purpose. Rick didn't hand success to Corey. He made him work for every inch of it. And that, perhaps, is what makes the Harrison family story resonate so deeply with fans around the world. It's not just about buying and selling, it's about building something meaningful with your own two hands, even when the odds are against you. There were moments, Corey admitted, when it seemed like the pressure might break Rick. Times when the cameras would stop rolling and the weight of the empire he'd built seemed too much for one man to bear. There were nights, Corey recalled, when I'd see him sitting alone in the shop after hours, just staring at the floor. You could tell his mind was racing, thinking about the next deal, the next episode, the bills, the staff, the family. It never stopped. He never got to just be Rick. He was always the boss. That identity, that mantle of responsibility, became both Rick's armor and his cage. It protected him from outside scrutiny but also kept him locked inside an unending cycle of obligation. Despite the fame, Rick never became untouchable. He never lost sight of where he came from or what it took to get there. In fact, Corey revealed that his father often went out of his way to help struggling customers at the pawn shop, acts of kindness that rarely made it into the final cut of the show. He'd spot someone down on their luck, Corey said, and he'd give them a break. Maybe throw in a little extra cash or knock down a price. He'd act like it was nothing, like it was just business. But I could tell it mattered to him. Those small, quiet gestures reflected a man who hadn't forgotten his roots, a man who knew what it was like to struggle and wanted to spare others that pain whenever he could. And Rick's generosity didn't stop at customers. Behind the scenes, he was fiercely loyal to his employees, often going the extra mile to ensure they had what they needed, whether it was a flexible schedule, a listening ear, or help with personal issues. The shop was like a second home, said one longtime employee who worked closely with Rick. He created a place where people felt safe, respected, and valued. He wasn't just our boss, he was our protector. That sense of responsibility, however, came at a personal cost. Rick's health battles, as Corey mentioned, were not limited to physical pain. The stress, the long hours, and the emotional toll of maintaining the facade of invincibility took a deep psychological toll. There were periods of isolation, moments of doubt, and stretches of time when Rick felt profoundly alone in his role. He never wanted to be a burden, Corey explained. So he kept it all in. Even when he was hurting, he'd smile and say, "I'm fine." But I could see through it. I could see the cracks. And those cracks, though rarely visible to the public, were real and widening with each passing year. The turning point, Corey said, came when Rick was hospitalized for a condition he had kept secret even from his family. It scared all of us, Corey admitted. We didn't even know how serious it was until he was in the ER. And still, he was cracking jokes with the nurses, trying to act like it was no big deal. That's who he is. He'd rather pretend everything's okay than let us worry. That moment forced the family to confront the very real cost of Rick's silent suffering. It was a wake-up call, a reminder that even the strongest among us have limits, and that no one, not even Rick Harrison, is invincible. Since that health scare, Corey said, his father has slowly begun to open up more, not just about his struggles but about his hopes, fears, and regrets. The change has been subtle but meaningful. He talks more now, Corey noted. He tells stories about the old days, about mistakes he made, things he'd do differently. He's more reflective. That reflection has also led Rick to share more of his personal interests with his family. The once hidden library, full of ancient books and rare artifacts, has become a shared space where Corey and Rick now spend quiet hours discussing everything from Stoic philosophy to quantum theory. He's got this whole other side, Corey said. And now that he's letting us see it, I feel like I'm getting to know my dad all over again. That bond, strengthened through hardship and vulnerability, has redefined their relationship. It's no longer just father and son working together. It's two men, shaped by the same legacy, learning how to support one another in new ways. And that shift has had a ripple effect throughout the family. We're closer now, Corey said. More honest. More open. And I think that's because of everything we've been through together. For fans of porn stars, these revelations offer a new lens through which to view not just Rick Harrison, but the show itself. What once seemed like light-hearted entertainment now feels, in retrospect, like a chronicle of a man's journey through pressure, perseverance, and quiet heroism. The negotiations, the jokes, the quirky customers, all of it was real. But beneath the surface was a man giving everything he had to protect what mattered most, his family and their future. Today, as the shop continues to thrive and the show remains a staple of pop culture, Rick Harrison's legacy is being re-evaluated. He's no longer just the sharp-witted businessman with a knack for rare finds. He's a father who sacrificed his own peace for the good of his children. He's a leader who weathered storms alone so others wouldn't have to. He's a man who built something lasting, not just in bricks and mortar but in memories, lessons, and love. And that, perhaps, is the greatest treasure of all. In recent months, Corey has taken on more of a leadership role within the family business, stepping out from his father's shadow while still honoring everything Rick built. The transition hasn't been easy, both emotionally and professionally. There are days when I look around and wonder how he did it, Corey confessed. He carried this place for decades.